Hello everybody, this is Dan Williams again, and this is my speech for the rehearsal of the demonstrative speech. My speech will be on how to put together a landscaping plan, and what's important about that is, a lot of people just throw plants different places, and you could hire me, because that's what I do, is put together landscapes, or you could do it yourself. You can put together your own plan, but there's a couple key things you're probably going to need to know, but I'm just going through the basics for a landscaper. Step one, you want to have a client interview. In this interview, you're going to find out what the design criteria is for your design. Now, if you don't have a client, the client's yourself. So you just, okay, what do I want? What colors do I want? What kind of texture do I want in the plants? You just write all those stuff down, so when you're designing, you know what plants to put where, what kind of curvature you might need on your design, or if it's just going to be a rectangular design, collinear, But you pretty much get the design criteria. So if you have a client, you're just going to ask them questions related to, okay, what colors do you like? Do you like formal? Do you like, kind of a wild look? Do you like kind of an antique look? Because you can do antique stuff with like rocks and stuff spilling over the rocks, like phlox, creeping phlox. It just weeps over the rocks. Now your next step is going to be to set up a base plan. Now the first part of setting up a base plan is you want to measure the area of your design. So if you have a client, you want to go to the talked about area. You want to get either a wheel measure or just some measuring tape if it's small enough. Depends on what size the design is. It's pretty simple. You just mark out different stuff, where a tree is, where a light post is, where the end of a bed is, where sidewalks are, where the building is. You jot all these down, and you kind of want to do, all right, from the edge of design to the edge of design. So you want to find the distance from here to here. There's your point, and here to here to your point. That way, when you put it on your design, you have a set point you can measure from. So usually you measure from a building, maybe the edge of the property line or the edge of the design, and you just go right to it. Now, when you go, also while you're at the site, you kind of want to do some other things, like you want to write down notes of whether it's very shady, very sunny. You kind of want to know that because you want to know what plants will go good where. Some plants don't do good in full sun, some don't do good in full shade. Also, you want to know where wet spots are, because a lot of plants don't do good in really wet areas. Wind exposure is key. A lot of people say plants don't feel wind, but some definitely do, and they'll get wind burn and everything. And like, I have these hydrangeas, and the only place I can put them is completely away from the sun and completely away from the wind, and that's the only place they'll live. So you want to write down different areas and where the winds come from, what side the sun comes up, which way is north. It's just stuff like that. The next step for setting up a base plan is you want to pick the scale for your drawing. The meaning behind this is, for example, 1 inch equals 1 foot. A lot of times we do a 1/4 inch equals a foot. That way you can make the design fit on a smaller piece of paper. If we do 1 inch equals a foot, you're talking about a pretty big design. So you want to make it small and readable, especially if you're submitting it to a client. But if you're doing it for yourself, it's all up to you. The scale is usually determined. If you have a set size piece of paper, how to determine it is pretty much find what your largest measurement is, and you go down the scale. If you go to like 1/4 inch, if it barely fits on a piece of paper, it gives you a couple of little edges off the paper like this, the margins, then that's perfect. Okay, then the rest of the measurements are going to fit fine on this piece of paper, and that's what your scale is going to be. But if it doesn't fit on that, then you have to go for a smaller scale, maybe an 1/8 inch. A lot of times you use 1/8 or 1/4. and we use probably about like a 36-inch piece of paper, sometimes a little smaller. It just really depends on the size of the design. But once you've gotten your scale, you should draw a half-inch border, like just a line going across your paper. It kind of like frames in your design. So then, and this line is technically the edge of your design where you can measure off of. So, and it kind of gives you a professional look. If you're submitting to clients and submitting to yourself, you don't really care if you're submitting it to yourself. That's fine, but if you're submitting it to clients, you should definitely put that edge in, maybe even put a Sharpie edge on it. Just nice, and use a guide to make it nice, neat line. You don't want it jaggedy. After you got that, you want to start plotting. The next step for your base plan is plotting those points that you've measured, and then labeling them, because a lot of times you forget what they are. Like, what's that point? But if you label them, okay, this is lighting, this is the oak tree, this is a maple tree, this is shade area, whatever. Just put it in there. Now your next step after your base plan is complete, because once you've got that done, your base plan is pretty much complete, is your preliminary design. Your preliminary design is where your creative side comes out. So, if you're thinking you want all the curves and stuff, you want to match the theme around a house or something like that, this is your chance to test it out. What you pretty much do, you can use just regular pieces of paper, a printer paper, and you lay it over your design. You're like, you know what, I kind of want this here. It doesn't work, you crumble up, you throw it away. But if it does work, you like it, you put it aside, then you draw something else. You want to put together as many preliminary designs as possible, and you want to pick your best ones, and you want to pick flaws, and you want to pick what's good out of them. And if it works, then awesome. And then you pick the best ones, and then you get a bigger piece of paper, you lay it over top of your preliminary design and your base plan, and then you trace everything. And that'll be for your final design. And you want to use, there's different weights in lines. You want to use the heaviest weight for buildings, a little bit lighter weights for hardscapes. Softscapes is, just go with the word softscapes. So you want to put in light pen, maybe. You can go to Hobby Lobby and pick up all these different weighted lines. And I recommend doing that. That's what I do. I usually use a Sharpie, and I do 2 lines with Sharpie for buildings and stuff. But yeah, your final design is pretty much just tracing, and then going back through and labeling, putting in the plant names and stuff like that you put in with your preliminary. You just want to make it look nice and neat, and that final design is what you're going to be going off of when you start putting it in. Now, to finish up your final design, you're going to have little areas where you didn't have design work in this final design because the paper's pretty big. You want to put in a box. In this box, you want to put your name, and you want to put where the north is pointing, and you want to put the name of the project. Now, this is obviously if you're submitting it to a client. Submitting to yourself, it's still good to put the name of the project down so you know what this is for. But yeah, this is pretty much just the basics. This by no means will get you clients or anything because they have classes on it. I've taken two and a half classes on this because one of my classes wasn't actually design, but I did a lot of design in it. So this will definitely just get you started, and especially with work around your house. Yeah, definitely, this will work. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, just be sure to comment on it, and I'll be sure to reply. Alrighty, thank you guys.